Who the fuck grabbed you? I froze. Dante Salvatore stood in the doorway, backlit by the golden chandelier light, his 6'3" frame filling the entire space. The most feared man in Chicago. My uncle's business partner. The man I'd been carefully avoiding for 3 months since I'd moved into this gilded prison. His gray eyes were locked on my wrist, and something in his expression made my blood run cold. Not anger. That would have been easier to handle. This was something darker. Something volcanic, bubbling just beneath his controlled surface. "It's nothing," I stammered, yanking my sleeve down. I bumped into a door." He moved faster than a man his size should be able to move. One moment he was in the doorway, the next his hand was on my arm, gentle, so impossibly gentle, as he pushed the fabric back up. The contrast between his touch and Marco's brutal grip from hours earlier made my throat tight. "A door," he repeated, his voice soft and deadly. "A door that has fingers." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because what could I say? That his nephew, Marco Salvatore, had cornered me in the parking garage of my uncle's restaurant? That he'd grabbed me when I refused his advances for the 10th time? That he'd squeezed hard enough to make me gasp, his wine-soaked breath hot against my face as he'd whispered that I was playing a dangerous game? Dante's thumb traced the air just above the bruises, never quite touching, as if he was memorizing their exact placement. When he looked up at me, I saw something in his eyes that made me want to run and stay perfectly still at the same time. "His fingers," Dante said, not a question. "Marco's fingers. I don't know what you're—" "Don't." The single word cut through my weak protest. "Don't lie to me, Sophia. I've known that boy since he was born. I know his handprint. I know his ring." He paused, touching a spot where a signet ring had left a deeper impression. "There. His father's ring. The one he wears to feel important." My heart was hammering so hard, I was sure he could hear it. "Please, just forget you saw anything. I can handle Marco. I just need to avoid him better. "You'll do nothing," Dante interrupted, and there was something almost tender in the way he said it, even as his words were steel. "You'll go upstairs. You'll have Marie draw you a bath. You'll rest. And you'll let me handle this." "Handle what?" "Dante, please, don't make a big deal out of this. If my uncle finds out there's drama between me and Marco, he'll send me back to Seattle, and I can't." My voice cracked. I couldn't go back to Seattle, back to my mother's boyfriend and his wandering hands, back to the studio apartment with no locks on the bedroom doors. My uncle's invitation to Chicago had been my escape, even if it meant living in a mansion full of dangerous men. Dante's jaw tightened. "Your uncle will never know. This is between me, my nephew, and the very important conversation we're about to have about respect." He released my arm and stepped back, but his eyes never left mine. There was a question in them, something unspoken, but heavy in the air between us. "Did he—" Dante's hands curled into fists at his sides. "Did he do anything else?" "No," I said quickly. "No, he grabbed my wrist. He said some things. But that was it. I got away." "What things?" "Dante, what? Things." I swallowed hard. That I was a tease. That I'd been leading him on. That I was going to regret playing hard to get with a Salvatore. The words tasted bitter. The usual garbage guys like him say when you won't fall at their feet. Something flickered across Dante's face. Pride, maybe. Or approval. "And you said?" I told him I'd rather date a lamp post. A laugh burst out of him, sharp and surprised, before he could stop it. For a moment, the dangerous mob boss disappeared, and I saw something else, someone younger, less burdened. Someone who might have been kind in a different life. "A lamp post," he repeated, shaking his head. "Christo, no wonder he grabbed you. His ego must have shattered into 1,000 pieces. Is that an excuse?" The words came out sharper than I intended, but I was tired. Tired of men thinking their hurt feelings justified their violence. Dante's expression sobered immediately. No, there is no excuse. Ever. He pulled out his phone, and I watched him type something quickly. You should know, Sophia, that I've been watching you these past 3 months. My stomach dropped. What? Not like that. He pocketed the phone. I've been watching how you handle yourself in this house. How you keep your head down, but your spine straight. How you help Marie with groceries, even though you're supposed to be a guest. How you've rebuilt your uncle's entire filing system without being asked. His eyes met mine. How you've turned down Marco every single time he's cornered you, even though you knew it would make your life harder. I didn't know what to say. I'd thought I was invisible here, just another piece of furniture in this mansion full of men in expensive suits who barely looked at me. You have more courage than most soldiers I know, Dante continued quietly. And you sure as hell have more courage than my nephew, who thinks grabbing women makes him strong. Footsteps echoed down the hall, and Dante's whole demeanor shifted. The brief moment of openness vanished, replaced by the cold, calculated man everyone feared. Go upstairs, he told me. Lock your door. Don't come out until I come get you. Dante, that wasn't a request, Bella. Go. The endearment made something flutter in my chest, but the look on his face made me turn and hurry toward the stairs. I glanced back once and saw 3 of his men had arrived, all of them wearing expressions that made me grateful I wasn't Marco. I made it to my room and locked the door as instructed, but I couldn't stop myself from cracking the window open. The rose garden was right below, and the breeze carried voices up to me. Don't give a fuck if he's my nephew, Tony. My sister's son or not, nobody puts their hands on women under my protection. She's not under your protection, boss. She's Lorenzo's niece. She's in my house. Dante's voice was deadly quiet. That makes her mine to protect. And someone needs to teach that boy the difference between power and brutality. What do you want us to do? Find him. Bring him to the warehouse. And Tony, make sure his father knows why. I let the curtain fall and stepped back from the window, my heart racing. What had I started? Marco was violent and entitled, yes, but he was still Dante's nephew. Family. Blood. In this world, that meant everything. The bath Marie drew for me later was scalding hot and scented with lavender, and she brought me tea without being asked. The older woman's eyes lingered on my wrist, but she said nothing. In this house, silence was survival. I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Was that a car pulling up? Footsteps in the hall? I kept thinking about Dante's face when he'd seen the bruises, the way his hands had shaken slightly even as his voice remained calm. Around 2 a.m, there was a soft knock on my door. Sophia. Dante's voice. It's me. I wrapped myself in my robe and opened the door. He stood there in the dim hallway, his white shirt sleeves rolled up, his jacket long gone. There was no blood on him, which I took as a good sign, but his eyes were tired. Is he... I didn't know how to finish that question. Alive? Yes. Walking without a limp? That'll take a few days. Dante ran a hand through his dark hair. He's been sent to our facility in Detroit. He won't be back in Chicago for a long time. His father, Dante interrupted, watched the security footage from the parking garage. The footage you probably didn't know existed. The footage showing Marco cornering you, grabbing you, backing you against your car. His jaw tightened. His father has no objections to my handling of the situation. I sagged against the doorframe, relief making my knees weak. Thank you. Don't thank me. Dante stepped closer, and in the low light, I could see the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the silver threading through his dark hair at his temples. He was 20 years older than me, old enough that I should have been immune to the way my pulse quickened when he was near. Don't thank me for doing what any decent man should do. But you did more than... I did what I wanted to do from the moment I saw those bruises. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to step back if I wanted. I didn't. His fingers traced the same path they had earlier, over the marks that were already starting to fade to yellow-green. I wanted to make sure he'd never even think about touching you again, about touching any woman like that again. Why? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Why do you care what happens to me? Dante's eyes met mine, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. Do you really not know? I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Sophia. He said my name like it was something precious, something to be handled carefully. For 3 months, I have watched you move through this house like a ghost, trying so hard not to be noticed, trying not to take up space, not to be a burden. And every day you've been here, I've had to stop myself from doing something incredibly stupid. What? Claiming you. The words were raw, honest. Telling your uncle that you're mine, and anyone who looks at you wrong will answer to me. But I didn't, because you deserve better than being another man's possession. You deserve to be asked, not taken. You deserve to choose. My heart was hammering so hard, I could barely think. Dante, I'm 47 years old, he continued, as if he hadn't heard me. I've done terrible things. I'll do more terrible things before I die. I'm not a good man, Sophia. But when I look at you, I want to be. When I saw those bruises tonight, something in me. He stopped, his hand falling away from my wrist. I need you to understand what I'm offering here. If you say yes to me, you become untouchable. No one in this organization, no one in this city would dare look at you wrong. You'd have my protection, my resources, my name. And what would you have? I whispered. His smile was sad, almost self-deprecating. Everything I don't deserve. Your trust, your time. You, if you'd let me earn you. I should have said no. This man was dangerous, powerful, connected to a world that had already hurt me through Marco. Every rational thought in my head was screaming at me to step back, to thank him politely and close the door. But I'd spent my whole life being rational, being careful, making myself smaller so men would leave me alone. And where had that gotten me? Bruises on my wrist and nightmares about wandering hands in the dark. Ask me, I said. Dante blinked. What? You said I deserved to be asked, not taken. So ask me. He exhaled slowly, and I watched something vulnerable cross his face. Sophia Rossi, will you let me... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Will you let me be the one who protects you? Who makes sure you never have to hide or make yourself smaller again? Will you give me the chance to prove that not all men in this world are like Marco? Yes, I said, and I didn't recognize my own voice. It was stronger than I'd ever heard it, certain in a way I'd never felt before. Yes, I will. The kiss that followed was nothing like I'd expected. Dante's hands framed my face so gently, his thumb brushing my cheek as his lips met mine. There was heat there, yes, but also reverence. Like he was trying to memorize this moment, brand it into his memory. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. You need to know what this means. I know what it means. No, Bella, you don't. Not yet. His hands slid down to my shoulders. It means I'll be possessive. It means I'll have guards on you when you leave the house. It means Marco's father, my own brother, will call what I did tonight a betrayal of family. It means I'm not alone anymore, I interrupted. It means someone finally put me first. It means, my voice cracked. It means I matter to someone. Dante's arms came around me, pulling me against his chest, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt safe. Truly, completely safe. You matter to me, he murmured into my hair. Christo, Sophia. You've mattered to me since the day your uncle brought you here, and you looked at me like you could see straight through to my rotten soul. You matter more than you know. We stood like that for a long moment, and I let myself believe it. Let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd found someone who would keep me safe, not because I was weak, but because I was worth protecting. The next morning, I woke to find a note slipped under my door. Family meeting at noon. Stay in your room until I come get you. D. I spent the morning pacing, trying not to imagine what a family meeting meant in this world. Marie brought me breakfast and squeezed my hand before leaving, which didn't help my anxiety. At 11:30, Dante knocked. He was in a full suit now, every inch the Mafia boss, but when I opened the door, his eyes softened. "How are you?" he asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "What's happening?" "What's happening is that the Salvatore family is about to learn that some rules are changing." He offered me his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Good. Neither am I." His smile was grim. "But we're doing it anyway." The dining room was full when we arrived. My uncle Lorenzo sat at one end of the long table, his weathered face unreadable. Dante's brother, Anthony, Marco's father, sat across from him, and the tension was thick enough to cut. Various other men I recognized from the house were scattered around, all of them watching us enter with calculating eyes. Dante guided me to a chair beside him at the head of the table. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. By placing me at his right hand, he was making a statement. "Thank you all for coming," Dante began, his voice carrying that particular quality that made people listen. "I've called this meeting to make an announcement, and to address last night's situation." Anthony leaned forward. "You mean the situation where you sent my son to Detroit like a common soldier?" "I mean the situation where your son assaulted a woman under my protection." Dante's voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "There's security footage, Anthony. Would you like me to play it for everyone here?" My uncle's eyes widened slightly, and I realized with a jolt that he hadn't known. Dante had kept his word. My uncle didn't know what Marco had done. "That's not necessary," Anthony said tightly. "I've seen the footage. What I'm questioning is your response. Marco is family. He made a mistake. He made a choice." Dante's hand found mine under the table, his fingers lacing through mine. A choice to put his hands on a woman who had repeatedly rejected him. A choice to use his strength to intimidate and hurt. That's not a mistake, brother. That's a pattern, and it's one I should have addressed years ago. "So, you exile him? Your own nephew?" "I exile him until he learns that power without respect is just brutality. Until he understands that women are not territory to be conquered." Dante's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "And I make it clear to every man in this organization that this behavior will not be tolerated. Not from soldiers, not from captains, not from family." One of the older men at the table cleared his throat. "With respect, boss, the girl's uncle is sitting right there. Shouldn't he be the one? My niece is a grown woman," Lorenzo interrupted, and I looked at him in surprise. "She doesn't need me to fight her battles. And from what I hear, Dante, you're not just acting as her protector." All eyes turned to us. Dante's hand tightened on mine. "No," he said clearly. "I'm not." The room exploded into murmurs. Anthony's face went red, but before he could speak, Dante stood, pulling me up with him. "Sophia Rossi has agreed to be under my personal protection. Effective immediately. Any insult to her is an insult to me. Any threat to her will be met with the full force of my response. And anyone who has a problem with this," he looked directly at his brother, "can take it up with me directly." "You're choosing her over your own blood," Anthony demanded, standing as well. "Over your nephew? Over family?" "I'm choosing to do the right thing," Dante replied. "Something I should have taught Marco years ago. Something you should have taught him." "You're making an enemy of me, Dante." "Then that's a price I'll pay." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel every eye in the room on us, weighing, judging, calculating what this shift in power meant. Finally, Lorenzo spoke. "The girl stays with Dante. Anyone who has a problem with that answers to me as well. I stared at my uncle in shock. He met my eyes and nodded slightly, and I understood. He'd known. He'd known what I was running from in Seattle. He'd known I needed protection, and he was giving me his blessing to find it with Dante. Anthony threw his napkin on the table and stormed out, 2 of his men following. But the others stayed, and one by one they nodded their acceptance. When the meeting finally ended, Dante led me out to the rose garden. My hands were shaking with released adrenaline, and he pulled me close, his arms solid around me. "You just made enemies for me," I whispered against his chest. "I just made it clear where I stand." He pulled back to look at me. "Sophia, there's something you need to understand about this world. Power isn't just about who you can hurt. It's about what you're willing to protect. Marco thought power was making you afraid. But real power? Real power is standing in front of the whole organization and saying, 'This woman is mine to protect, and I don't care who that pisses off.' Yours to protect," I repeated, "not yours to own. Never yours to own." His hand cupped my face. "You're your own person, Bella. You always will be. I'm just the man lucky enough that you let me stand beside you." I rose on my tiptoes and kissed him, and this time there was no hesitation. His arms came around me, lifting me slightly, and I felt something inside me unfurl. Something that had been clenched tight for so long I'd forgotten it was there. Hope, maybe. Or trust. Or maybe just the simple, radical belief that I deserved to be treated with kindness. When we finally broke apart, Dante rested his forehead against mine. "I want to do this right," he murmured. "Court you properly, take you to dinner. Let you see who I am outside these walls." "I already know who you are," I told him. "You're the man who saw bruises on my wrist and declared war for me. You're the man who chose me over blood family. You're yours," he finished. "If you'll have me. I know I'm older. I know my world is dangerous. I know you deserve better. But Cristo, Sophia, I want to be the one who makes sure you never have to be afraid again." "Then be that," I said simply. "Be that. And I'm yours too." His smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. "Yeah? Yeah." He kissed me again, slower this time. Sweeter. And I thought about how strange life was. 24 hours ago, I'd been a ghost in this mansion, trying to stay invisible, hoping no one would notice me enough to hurt me. Now I was standing in a rose garden, kissing a Mafia boss, and I'd never felt more seen in my life. 3 weeks later, I was in the kitchen helping Marie prep for dinner when Dante came home early. I knew something was different immediately. He had that particular set to his shoulders that meant business had been handled. "Sophia," he said, and there was something in his voice that made Marie quietly excuse herself. "Come with me." He led me to his office, a room I'd only been in twice before. It was all dark wood and leather, intimidating and masculine, and so completely Dante that I almost smiled. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the leather couch. When I did, he sat beside me and took both my hands in his. "I need to tell you something." My heart jumped. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's—" He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "Marco's in the hospital in Detroit." I felt cold all over. What happened? Did someone— "No, Bella. No one touched him." Dante's thumbs rubbed soothing circles on my hands. "He tried to assault another woman. A bartender. She fought back, gave him a black eye and a broken nose, and the bar owner, one of our people, called it in immediately. Is she okay?" "She's fine. Better than fine. She's being compensated and has been offered security if she wants it." His eyes met mine. "But this confirms what I suspected. Marco's behavior with you wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. What happens now?" "Now?" Dante's expression hardened. "Now he stays in Detroit indefinitely. He's been stripped of his position and his allowance. He'll work as a basic soldier if he can prove he's learned something. And if he steps out of line again, he's out of the family entirely. Can you do that? Just cut someone out? I can when the alternative is every woman in our territory living in fear. His hand came up to cup my face. You changed something in me, Sophia. Made me look at things I'd been ignoring. Marco wasn't the only one who needed to learn respect. This whole organization needed a wake-up call. Over the past 3 weeks, I'd seen the changes. New policies about how soldiers could interact with women in their territory. Mandatory meetings about respect and boundaries. 2 men had already been cut from the organization for violations, and word had spread fast. The Salvatore family was changing, and it had started the night Dante saw bruises on my wrist. I have something for you, Dante said, pulling a small box from his pocket. My breath caught. Dante, it's not what you think. Not yet. He opened the box, revealing a delicate gold bracelet with a small charm. A rose. I know you're still healing. I know we're still getting to know each other. But I wanted you to have something that says you're protected. Something that says you matter. He fastened it around my wrist, over the spot where the bruises had finally faded completely. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us. When you're ready, he said softly. When you've seen enough of who I am to know what you're signing up for, I'm going to ask you to marry me. I'm going to ask you to take my name and let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt your worth again. But until then, he pressed a kiss to the bracelet. Until then, wear this, and know that you're mine to protect. Not mine to own, never to own, but mine to keep safe. Tears stung my eyes. What if I'm ready now? Dante's expression softened with something like wonder. Sophia? You said I deserved to be asked, not taken. You said I deserved to choose. I turned to face him fully. I choose you, Dante. I choose this. Whatever it looks like, whatever it means, I choose us. You're 27 years old, he said, but there was hope in his voice. You should be dating boys your own age, going to clubs, living a normal life. I don't want normal. Normal got me bruises and fear and making myself invisible. I took his face in my hands. I want this. I want you. I want to wake up every day knowing that someone chose me, protected me, stood up for me. I want to be the woman standing next to the man who changed an entire organization because he cared about doing what was right. I'm not a good man, he warned, but his hands were already pulling me closer. You're good to me. You're good for me. That's enough. He kissed me then, deep and claiming. And when he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Ask me, he said, echoing my words from that first night. I smiled through my tears. Dante Salvatore, will you marry me? His laugh was pure joy. I had a whole speech planned, you know. I was going to take you to that restaurant you like, get down on one knee. Dante. Yes, he said and kissed me again. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Cristo. Sophia. Yes. The ring came out a week later, during a formal dinner with the entire family. Dante stood, his hand in mine, and announced our engagement to the room. My uncle beamed. Anthony had chosen not to attend, but most of the others raised their glasses in genuine celebration. To Sophia, Dante said, his voice carrying across the room, who walked into this house trying to be invisible and ended up changing everything. Who taught an old dog that it's never too late to be better. Who chose to trust me even when she had every reason not to. His eyes met mine. You're the bravest person I know, Bella, and I'm going to spend every day earning that bravery. The kiss he gave me made several people whistle, but I didn't care. I was too busy thinking about how strange and wonderful life was. How the worst night of my life, those bruises, that fear, had led to this. Later, when we were alone on the terrace, Dante pulled me against him, his chin resting on top of my head. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Choosing this life? I thought about it honestly. No. You know what I regret? I regret all the years I spent making myself smaller. All the times I didn't speak up, didn't fight back, because I was afraid of making things worse. I turned in his arms to look up at him. You didn't just save me that night, Dante. You reminded me that I was worth saving, that I deserved to take up space, to be protected, to matter. His kiss was gentle this time, reverent. You always mattered, Bella. I just made sure everyone else knew it too. So what happens now? I asked, even though I knew the answer. Dante's smile was slow and sure. Now? Now we build a life. We change this organization into something better. We show people that power and respect aren't mutually exclusive. And he pulled me closer. We make sure every woman in this territory knows she can fight back, that she has value, that she deserves to be asked, not taken. All because you saw bruises on my wrist. All because I couldn't stand the thought of anyone hurting you, he corrected. And once I admitted that to myself, everything else fell into place. I rose on my tiptoes to kiss him, and in the distance I could hear the sound of the city. Chicago, alive and dangerous and beautiful. My city now, my home. I love you, I whispered against his lips. I love you too, Bella. His arms tightened around me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. As for Marco, I heard he was still in Detroit, working his way up from nothing, learning the hard way that respect couldn't be taken by force. His father eventually came around, appeared at family dinners again, though things with Dante would never be quite the same. But that was okay. Some bridges needed to burn to make room for new growth. And me? I became Sofia Salvatore 6 months later, in a ceremony that was surprisingly simple and surprisingly perfect. I kept working with my uncle's business, reorganizing systems, and making things run smoother. I started a program for women in the territory who needed help leaving bad situations. I took up space, used my voice, and never made myself invisible again. Because Dante had been right that first night. Real power wasn't about making people afraid. Real power was standing up and saying, "This person matters to me, and I'll burn the world down to keep them safe." And every time I looked at the bracelet on my wrist, the wedding band beside it, I remembered the night everything changed. The night someone saw my bruises and asked the question that started everything. Who the fuck grabbed you? 3 words that declared war. 3 words that changed my life. 3 words that proved sometimes the most dangerous men can also be the ones who save you. Not from the monsters outside, but from the fear inside that says you're not worth fighting for. Dante taught me I was worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth choosing. And I taught him that being powerful didn't mean being cruel, that real strength was using your position to lift others up, not tear them down. Together we built something neither of us expected. Not just a marriage, but a partnership. Not just protection, but respect. Not just safety, but love. And it all started with bruises on my wrist and a man who cared enough to ask why. What I didn't know, what neither of us knew, was that peace in this world was always temporary, and the storm gathering on the horizon would make Marco's exile look like a minor inconvenience. It started small, a missed shipment, a warehouse that came up short on inventory. Nothing alarming on its own, but Dante had taught me to pay attention to patterns, and there was a pattern forming. 3 weeks after our wedding, I was going through the books for one of our legitimate businesses, a chain of restaurants my uncle had built, when I noticed something off. Dante, I called from his office, where I'd taken to working most afternoons. He appeared in the doorway immediately, still in his shirt and tie from whatever meeting he'd just left. What's wrong? He could read my moods now, could tell from my tone that this wasn't a casual question. The Northside restaurant. The numbers don't match. I turned the laptop toward him. They're reporting 30% less revenue than last quarter, but their supplier orders are up. And look, I pulled up another screen. Their staff costs are the same, their hours are the same, but suddenly they're barely breaking even? Dante's expression darkened as he studied the numbers. How long has this been happening? Started about 6 weeks ago. Gradual at first, but it's accelerating. I pulled up more data. And it's not just them. 3 other locations show similar patterns, all in the same territory. Anthony's territory, Dante said quietly, and my stomach dropped. His brother, Marco's father, the man who'd barely spoken to us since the wedding, who'd skipped our reception and sent his regrets through a subordinate. You think he's skimming? I asked, even though I knew the answer from Dante's face. I think he's doing more than skimming. Dante pulled out his phone and made a call. Tony, my office, now. He hung up and looked at me. Sophia, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to go upstairs, pack a bag, and be ready to leave in 10 minutes. My blood ran cold. What's happening? I don't know yet, but if Anthony's making a move, he's not doing it alone. And until I know who's loyal and who's not... He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. I need you safe. Please, Bella. Don't fight me on this. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I could handle myself, that I wasn't going to run at the first sign of trouble. But I saw the fear in his eyes. Real, genuine fear. And I knew this was different. Where am I going? Lorenzo's lake house. Your uncle's already on his way there. You'll have 4 guards, all men I trust with my life. He kissed me hard and fast. I'll come get you as soon as this is handled. I promise. I made it upstairs and had just started throwing clothes into a bag when I heard the shouting from downstairs. Male voices raised in anger, then a sound that made my blood freeze, a gunshot. I dropped the bag and ran to the door, my hand on the knob, when it burst open. One of Dante's guards, Michael, a young guy who always smiled when he saw me, grabbed my arm. We have to go, now. Dante, the boss said to get you out. There are men in the house, Mrs. Salvatore. Men who aren't ours. Another gunshot, closer this time. Please, we have to move. He pulled me into the hallway, and I saw 2 other guards flanking us, their guns drawn. We made it to the servants' staircase, the one that led down to the kitchen, when I heard Dante's voice below. You want to do this? Here? In my own house, Anthony? Your house? Anthony's voice was cold with rage. This should have been my house. I'm older. I'm the rightful heir. But Papa gave it all to you. His golden boy. His perfect son who could do no wrong. So this is about inheritance? About pride? Dante's voice was deadly calm, which scared me more than if he'd been yelling. You're willing to start a war over ego? I'm willing to take what should have been mine from the beginning. And that little bitch you married, the one you chose over my son, she'll be the first to... Michael's hand clamped over my mouth, muffling my gasp. He shook his head frantically, pulling me away from the stairs. But I'd heard enough. Anthony wasn't just skimming money. He was staging a coup, and I was his primary target. We made it out through the kitchen door and into the garage. A black SUV was already running, and Michael shoved me into the back seat, climbing in beside me while the other 2 guards took the front. Drive, Michael ordered, and we peeled out of the garage just as I heard more gunshots from inside the house. We have to go back, I said, trying to reach for the door. Dante's in there, we can't just... The boss can handle himself, Michael said, but his knuckles were white where he gripped his gun. Our job is to keep you safe. That's what he'd want. We'd made it maybe 3 blocks when the SUV behind us, one I hadn't realized was following, suddenly accelerated and rammed into our bumper. The impact threw me forward, and only Michael's arm across my chest kept me from hitting the seat in front of me. They're on us! The driver shouted, swerving. Hold on! What followed was the most terrifying 10 minutes of my life. Our driver weaved through Chicago streets at speeds that made my stomach lurch, while the SUV behind us kept pace, occasionally pulling alongside to try to force us off the road. I caught glimpses of the men inside, faces I recognized from family dinners, from meetings at the house. Dante's own people, bought by his brother. We're not going to make it to the lake house, Michael said into his phone. We need backup. Now. A pause. I don't care if Lorenzo's already there. We need... He swore as another impact rocked the car. We're going to the church, St. Michael's. Tell the boss. Why the church? I asked, my nails digging into the leather seat. Neutral ground. Old rules. Even in a war, nobody touches people in a church. He met my eyes. I hope. We screamed into the parking lot of St. Michael's, an old stone building I'd passed 100 times but never entered, and Michael hauled me out of the car before it had fully stopped. The other guards formed a barrier around us as we ran for the front doors. They were locked. "Please!" Michael shouted, pounding on the heavy wood. "Sanctuary! We need sanctuary!" For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened a crack, and an elderly priest peered out. His eyes widened when he saw the guns, the blood on Michael's sleeve from where he'd caught some flying glass. What is the meaning of, "Father, please"? I pushed forward, meeting the priest's eyes. "My name is Sofia Salvatore. There are men trying to kill me, and we're asking for sanctuary under the old laws. Please." Maybe it was the desperation in my voice. Maybe it was the sound of cars, screeching into the parking lot behind us. But the priest's face softened, and he pulled the door open wide. "Quickly, inside!" We tumbled into the church just as the SUV pulled up. The guards turned to face the door, their guns raised, but Michael grabbed me and pulled me toward the altar. "Stay down!" he hissed, pushing me behind a pew. "No matter what happens, stay down." The front door opened, and 4 men walked in. Men I recognized. Carlo, who'd been at our wedding. Gio, who'd helped carry gifts. And 2 others I'd seen around the house but never spoke to. "Hand over the girl," Carlo said, his voice echoing in the empty church. "This doesn't have to get messy." "You're in a church," the priest said, his voice surprisingly strong for such an old man. "These people have claimed sanctuary. Under the old laws, you cannot touch them." "The old laws died with the old men," Carlo sneered. "Times have changed, Father. Step aside." "No." The single word hung in the air. Michael and the other guards shifted, and I could see the calculation in everyone's eyes. Who would shoot first? Who was willing to spill blood on holy ground? "Carlo." My voice surprised me, stronger than I felt. I stood up slowly, Michael cursing under his breath as he tried to pull me back down. "You were at my wedding. You drank to our health. You told Dante you'd follow him to hell and back." Carlo's jaw tightened. "That was before he exiled a Salvatore over some what? Some woman?" I stepped out from behind the pew, and I saw Gio's hand twitch toward his gun. "Say it. Say what you were going to say. Because we all know Marco didn't just grab me. We all know about the bartender in Detroit, and the waitress before that, and the girl from the dry cleaners. How many women have to get hurt before you admit that Dante did the right thing?" "This isn't about Marco," Carlo said, but his voice was less certain now. "Isn't it? Anthony's angry because his son got punished for assaulting women. He's angry because Dante chose to protect people instead of protecting the family name." I took another step forward. "And now he's sent you here to kill me. To murder a woman in a church. Because that's what good soldiers do, right? They follow orders no matter how disgraceful." I saw it then, the flicker of doubt in Carlo's eyes. In Gio's. They were here because they'd been ordered, not because they believed in what they were doing. "Sophia." Michael's voice was tight with warning. "Get back." But I didn't. I kept walking forward, my hands out and empty, until I was standing directly in front of Carlo. "My husband asked you once what kind of men you wanted to be, what kind of organization you wanted to build." My voice didn't shake, even though inside I was terrified. "So, I'm asking you now, is this who you are? Men who shoot unarmed women in churches? Men who betray their oaths because someone offers them what? More money? A better position?" "Anthony's offering us respect," Gio said. "Something Dante forgot about when he chose you over his own blood." "Respect?" I almost laughed. "You think Anthony respects you? You think he sees you as anything other than tools? The second you're done killing me, you'll be loose ends. Witnesses. He'll get rid of you, too." "She's right." The voice came from the back of the church, and everyone spun around. Dante stood in the doorway, his white shirt stained with blood, though I couldn't tell if it was his or someone else's. Behind him were at least a dozen men, all armed, all wearing expressions that made Carlo and his crew take a step back. My brother's plan was always to clean up after, Dante continued, walking slowly down the aisle. His eyes found mine, and I saw relief flash across his face before the mask returned. Kill my wife. Kill anyone loyal to me. Then blame it on a rival family and use the chaos to take control. He stopped about 10 feet away. You were always going to die today, Carlo. Anthony just needed you to do his dirty work first. You're lying, Carlo said, but his gun was wavering. Am I? Dante pulled out his phone and hit play. Anthony's voice filled the church. Don't care how you do it. Just make sure there are no witnesses. Carlo and his crew are expendable. Once the girl's dead, make it look like they got caught in the crossfire. No one can connect this back to me. The recording cut off. Carlo's face had gone pale. You were never getting out of this alive, Dante said softly. But you still have a choice. Put the guns down, and you have my word you'll walk out of here. Keep pointing them at my wife, and I'll paint these walls with you. Right here, right now. Old laws be damned. The silence that followed was suffocating. I watched Carlo's hand shake, watched him look at his crew, at Dante's men, at me, calculating odds, calculating whether he believed Dante's offer. Finally, slowly, he lowered his gun. I'm out. This whole thing. I'm out. Gio and the others followed suit, and I felt Michael's hand on my shoulder, pulling me back as Dante's men moved forward to collect the weapons. Dante crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, his hands framing my face as he searched my eyes. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? I'm fine. Michael got me out. I grabbed his shirt, feeling the rapid beat of his heart under my palm. Anthony, in custody, along with 12 others who thought they'd cash in on a coup. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. It's over, Bella. It's over. But I saw something in his eyes that told me it wasn't quite over. What else? He glanced at the priest, at the men collecting weapons, at Michael and my guards. Can you give us a moment? They filed out, leaving us alone in the church. Dante led me to a pew and sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 47 years. Anthony's my brother, he said quietly. Blood. Family. And I have to. His voice broke. I have to make an example. If I don't, every hothead with ambition will think they can challenge me, will think they can come after you. I understood what he wasn't saying. You have to kill him. It's the law. The old law. He tried to kill my wife, staged a coup, turned my own men against me. Dante's hands clenched into fists. And Cristo, Sophia, part of me wants to. Part of me wants to make him pay for putting you in danger. But he's my brother. We grew up together. I taught him to ride a bike, helped him with his homework, stood beside him at his wedding. I took his hands in mine, uncurling his fingers. What do you want to do? He exhaled slowly. I want to exile him, like Marco. Send him away with nothing. Let him build a life somewhere else. But that's not strong enough. It'll look weak. Other families will circle like sharks. Then exile him with conditions, I said, the plan forming as I spoke. Make him pay restitution to every family that was affected by his stealing. Make him publicly denounce what he did. Strip him of the Salvatore name. He has to go by his mother's maiden name. And make it clear that if he ever sets foot in Illinois again, the exile becomes a death sentence. Dante stared at me. That's brilliant. It's harsh enough to send a message, but not so brutal that I become the man who killed his own brother. You're not that man, I said firmly. You're the man who changes things, who makes this world better. Killing Anthony doesn't do that. But showing that there are consequences without always resorting to violence? That changes everything. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. How did I get so lucky? he murmured into my hair. How did I find you? You saw bruises on my wrist and declared war, I reminded him. Everything else just followed. We sat like that for a long moment, the silence of the church wrapping around us like a blanket. Finally, Dante pulled back. There's one more thing. Marco. My stomach tightened. What about him? He called. When he heard his father was staging a coup, he called to warn me. Dante's expression was complicated. Said he knew I'd never believe him, that he didn't deserve to be believed. But he couldn't let his father hurt you. Said you were the first person who'd ever made someone stand up for women in this family, and he... Dante's voice caught. He thanked you. Said he's been in therapy. Said he's starting to understand how much damage he did. Tears stung my eyes. Could he come back? Someday. If he keeps working on himself, if he proves he's changed. Dante tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. You changed more than just me, Sophia. You changed this whole family. Made us look at ourselves and ask hard questions. 3 months later, we held a meeting at the house, the entire organization, every captain and soldier. Dante stood at the head of the table, me beside him, and announced the new structure. Anthony was gone, his territory redistributed. New rules about treatment of women, not just in theory, but in practice, with real consequences. A fund for victims who needed help leaving bad situations. And Carlo, who'd lowered his gun in that church, was promoted. Made an example of in a different way, showing that loyalty, even when it came late, was valued. This organization is changing, Dante told the room. We're still a family. We still protect our own. But we're going to be the family that does things right, that treats people with respect, that understands power without honor is just tyranny. His hand found mine under the table. My wife taught me that, and I'm going to make damn sure every one of you learns it too. Later that night, alone in our room, Dante pulled me close and kissed the inside of my wrist. The same spot where Marco's bruises had faded months ago. You know what I think about sometimes? He murmured against my skin. What? That night, when I saw these bruises and asked who grabbed you, I think about how different things would be if I'd looked the other way. If I'd told myself it wasn't my business, that you weren't my responsibility. His gray eyes met mine. I would have lost everything. You would have been fine, I said. You were powerful before me. I was powerful, but I wasn't good. I wasn't the man I wanted to be. He pressed his forehead to mine. You made me want to be better, Sophia. And in trying to be better for you, I became better for everyone. I kissed him, soft and slow, and thought about everything that had led us here. The fear, the violence, the moments when I'd been sure we wouldn't survive. But we had. We'd survived, and we'd built something real. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, Bella. His arms tightened around me, and I'm going to spend every day proving that sometimes the most dangerous men are the ones who'll burn the world down to keep you safe. Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness. My city, my home, full of danger and beauty and possibility. And I wasn't afraid anymore, because I'd learned that being protected didn't mean being helpless. Being loved didn't mean being owned. And being chosen meant you had the power to choose back. Dante had asked me once who grabbed me, and in answering, I'd found my voice, my strength, my future. We'd both been saved that night, him from becoming a man who looked the other way, and me from a life spent making myself invisible. Now we stood together, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something brighter. And that, I thought as Dante's hand found mine in the dark, was the best kind of love story. Not the kind where someone saves you, but the kind where you save each other. Over and over again, every single day.